Xbox Game Pass destroys Kotaku with a Twitter reply. Sales are still going very well for the Xbox Series X and S, and Ed Freeze weighs in on his concerns with Xbox Game Pass. So it's been a rough couple of weeks for Xbox, at least from a public relations perspective, when you look at journalists and these big websites pretty much trying to cash in on the disappointment of the delays of Starfield and Redfall. And you guys know my stance and my take on Xbox Game Pass in 2022 and overall as a service. I love it. I think it's great. I think there's still so many games to play, even without the release of the first-party Xbox Game Studio games so far in 2022. I completely understand the disappointment of not having a game from Xbox Game Studios yet. I am disappointed as well, but in no way do I think there's nothing to play on Xbox Game Pass. There's still so much content to play. And in 2022, although we haven't gotten that huge release from Xbox Game Studios yet, I've still had so much fun playing a bunch of different games that I probably would have never checked out before. I'm just thinking on the top of my head, the last 5 or so games that I've played. Nobody Saves the World, absolutely loved it. Trek to Yomi was a fun game. Far Changing Tides, that was an indie game where you're on a boat, you're going through the world, and you kind of have to keep your boat running and fixed and all that type of stuff. Very interesting indie game. Definitely would have never checked that one out if it wasn't for the service. Shredders, an amazing snowboarding game. Probably the best snowboarding game I've played in a very long time, out on Xbox Game Pass on day one. Iodine Chronicles, a game that I'm playing right now, which I'm really enjoying. Tunic, one of the best games of the year, in my opinion. It up there for me as a game of the year contender. Another indie game. So there are just so many great games to play on Xbox Game Pass that it's just absolute nonsense for people to be so upset about they're not getting that huge AAA game unless it's literally the only thing that you are looking forward to. And we have more articles trying to cash in on the disappointment on the news cycle of Xbox Game Pass. This one here from Kotaku, and I went through it. It's pretty much everything that we talked about yesterday in the video, where you had the big journalists coming out and saying that they were unsubscribing from Xbox Game Pass, and how this may be some sort of tidal wave change in terms of the hype for Xbox Game Pass, or it may be absolutely nothing. And as it says here, the whole thing could be a clout war, or saying that nobody actually cares about what these journalists are saying. In fact, it says here, it's unclear whether the extended convo has had a tangible impact on Game Pass subscription numbers. Microsoft does not make such figures public, and representatives for the company do not immediately respond to a request for comment. I would personally be very surprised if these people tweeting this stuff out about Xbox Game Pass actually has a big hit on the amount of subscribers to the service. And the reason I say that is because social media realistically represents a very small fraction of the people that are playing video games and the people that are subscribed to Xbox Game Pass. Also, you probably have a ton of bots. You probably have just a ton of troll accounts who are saying they're unsubscribing and were never actually subscribed to the service. So will what's going on social media have any big impact on the amount of subscribers to Game Pass? Probably not. And if it did, I have a strong feeling, I'm confident, that all of this is going to go away on June 12th after the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. Now, what is even funnier about this article is that it got ratioed to hell by Xbox Game Pass. So they tweeted this out after years of hype. The Xbox Game Pass burnout is here. And Xbox Game Pass's social media account replies, "Tell me you limit yourself to only AAA games without telling me you limit yourself to only AAA games." And I think this is just such a brilliant response from whoever the person is running the Xbox Game Pass social media account, because that is the key right there for people like myself, for other people out there who like to try out different games, experience a bunch of different experiences they would have never had before. Xbox Game Pass gives you that option. And if you aren't just fully set on that big AAA first-party Xbox Game Studio game this year in 2022, you will have so much to play. You will have great experiences. I promise you that. And that's talking from somebody who's played a bunch of these smaller games so far. And then we continue on here. You even have In Exile getting in on it with this screenshot here, with the Xbox Game Pass response. You have somebody down here saying, I think gamers will hit $70 burnout much faster. You have Benji Sales. Yeah, this year I've played Tunic, The Forgotten City, and I'm currently playing Trek to Yomi through Game Pass and probably wouldn't have bought any of them otherwise. One of the coolest things about Game Pass, in my opinion, is how much easier it makes to try indie titles. And there are great indie titles out there. Don't skip Nobody Saves the World. It's fantastic. And I 100% agree. I feel like not enough people have talked about Nobody Saves the World. One of my favorite games this year. I just loved that style of game. It's really, really good. If you haven't checked out Nobody Saves the World, I highly recommend checking it out. And then we have the funniest take of them all, in my opinion, when it comes to the Xbox Game Pass reply to Kotaku. We have Tony Polanco here on Twitter, who was one of the people who tweeted publicly that they were unsubscribing from Xbox Game Pass, saying, unsub from Game Pass, the service is great, but there aren't any AAA exclusives to compel me to stay. I'll be back when the titles start dropping. And as I mentioned in my video yesterday, I mean, absolutely no problem with people unsubscribing. If you want to unsubscribe, save your money. You don't use it, keep that money in your pocket, unsubscribe. I don't understand why you have to publicly announce it, but hey, do you. Then we have this response, which is the take that I find very funny, which is commenting on Xbox Game Pass reply to the Kotaku article, saying, I don't think it's right for the official Xbox Game Pass account to shame users who prefer AAA games, just my opinion. Now, the thing here is, in the article from Kotaku, his tweet was highlighted. It was quoted in the article. So I'm assuming he's guessing or thinking that they are kind of replying to him because his tweet was in there, or just in general applying to the person who wrote the article for Kotaku. But the Xbox Game Pass account was replying simply to the Kotaku article, and they were making kind of a satire reply, the way that I read it, in terms of limiting yourself to just AAA games when there are so many great games within Xbox Game Pass to check out. I just listed like 5 or 6 at the beginning of this video. And the point of that tweet was people who just want to play AAA games, even though there are AAA games within the service, are the ones that are complaining about Xbox Game Pass right now at this moment, or the ones that are disappointed in saying that there is nothing to play. But all in all, it's just more hilariousness, I guess, with Xbox Game Pass and the media cashing in on the negativity and the disappointment and the anger certain people have towards Xbox right now because of the lack of first-party Xbox Game Studios release. And I want to be completely clear when I say this about Game Pass, why I'm not that disappointed right now with the games that I've been experiencing. It's not that I don't care that there haven't been those first-party Xbox Game Studio releases. Xbox needs to get on that. They need to make sure that they are releasing a game every 3 to 4 months and providing the content, because they have so many studios. And once they start doing that, this service will just be unbeatable. It'll be the best service out there by far, which I still think it is right now, but it'll be on a different level than anything else that's out there, unless at the same time PlayStation starts putting out their first-party games day and date into their service at some point in the future. It's not an excuse. I just think that there's a lot of overblown negativity around the service because Starfield and Redfall got delayed. So everything that's coming out is to cash in on that negativity. And June 12th is just around the corner. It will be super interesting to see how all of the journalists and all of these big game websites completely do a 180 if Xbox has an incredible show. Now, jumping over here to the sales estimates, the hardware estimates for May 8th to 14th, and this is from VG Charts, and VG Charts has definitely been improving. We saw the tweet from William D'Angelo and how they've really taken more pride in trying to get the best estimates possible. And one of the things that is not being affected by all this negativity with Xbox Game Pass is they are still selling very well for the Xbox Series X and S. So you have the hardware estimates here from May 8th to 14th. The Nintendo Switch, the best-selling console, again, at 316,866 units sold. You have the Xbox Series X and S in second place at 120,791 units sold, which brings their lifetime sales to 14.69 million units. And then you have the PlayStation 5, which sold an estimated 98,149 units, which brings their lifetime sales to 19.72 million units sold. So even with all the negativity and Starfield and Redfall being delayed, we are still seeing the Xbox Series X and S outselling the PlayStation 5 on a weekly basis going through May. And again, this could be for a variety of reasons. The big one, I always have to mention it because it definitely has a huge effect, is the shortage of inventory for the PlayStation 5. Also, even for the Xbox Series X and S. I mean, they probably could be selling more if they were able to get more consoles out there, but that plays a major role in it. However, I don't think that is the only thing that plays a major role within these sales. The Xbox Series X and S, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you want to blame it all on the hardware shortage, is a desirable console, especially the Series S, which has an incredible price point and can play all of those really big and popular third-party games, specifically third-party first-person shooters and sports games that a lot of just the mainstream crowd is going to want to check out and play. And I think we will continue to see this trend, especially once Activision Blizzard deal is closed. You're going to see Xbox start marketing Warzone, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on the boxes. They're going to have the 120 hertz, 120 FPS on there. As we know, they can hit that with the first-person shooters. And those things are going to fly off the shelves. Think about even a game like Overwatch. You add that onto the box, and just any of these extremely popular games. And the Xbox Series S, you attach it to a monitor. I've said this multiple times. I have a 144 hertz monitor, can hit 120 FPS on Halo, Call of Duty. It does just amazing stuff for the price, and you're going to see people see the value in that and just want to pick up a $299 Xbox to be able to play Warzone at 120 frames per second. All right, jumping over here to some more Xbox Game Pass news, some more skepticism, and this time it comes from Ed Fries, the former Xbox executive. So Ed Fries was a part of the original Xbox launch team back in 2004. You should watch the Xbox documentary that came out. He had a prominent role in that, and it was very, very interesting to see how he came in and kind of really helped with the launch of the original Xbox. He talks about Xbox Game Pass and how he's actually scared of the impact that Xbox Game Pass could have on the industry, comparing it to Spotify. Now, first of all, he makes a bunch of claims here that have been disputed in terms of the actual negative impact he thinks Spotify has had on the music industry. He says here, the one thing they're doing that makes me nervous is Game Pass. Game Pass scares me because there's a somewhat analogous thing called Spotify that was created for the music business. When Spotify took off, it destroyed the music business. It literally cut the annual revenue of the music business in half. It made it so people just don't buy songs anymore. People don't buy songs on iPhone, for example, because why would you? They're all on your subscription service app. Apple's said they're going to take away buying songs because no one's buying them anymore. So we have to be careful we don't create the same system in the game business. These markets are more fragile than people realize. I saw the games industry destroy itself in the early 80s. I saw the educational software business destroy itself in the mid 90s. They literally destroyed a multi-billion-dollar market in a few years. So Game Pass makes me nervous. As a customer, I love it. I love Spotify as a customer. I have all the songs I'd ever want. It's a great deal as a customer, but it isn't necessarily great for the industry. Then continues on here to say, at some point it tipped and everything had to be on Spotify. The percentage of all games that are on Game Pass is still tiny, and there are a lot of games. 200 games a week come out on Steam, and more than that come out on mobile. Now, he said a lot of things there, specifically when it came to Spotify and the music industry, and how there are certain things that have really hit the music industry that have hurt it very badly. And Tim Ingham, who is an editor of Music Business World, told Video Game Chronicles that streaming's impact on the music industry had overall been hugely beneficial. So his skepticism about, first of all, the music industry being hurt by Spotify and that translating to Xbox Game Pass doesn't seem to be actually something that has happened within the music industry. Tim Ingham says here, Spotify didn't cut the music business in half, piracy did. Spotify and the cloud-based technology on which it relies actually gave music fans a more convenient, legal, and monetized alternative to piracy. And that's always a debate people have when it comes to the streaming services, when it comes to piracy, when it comes to all that type of stuff. I feel like if you're pirating songs, even with Spotify, you're still probably pirating songs. And the people who are paying for Spotify are not the ones that would have gone out and illegally downloaded a lot of these songs before the release of the service. He continues on here saying, and then once customers were comfortable with that, Spotify and its rivals performed a further miracle, upselling hundreds of millions of music consumers to subscription via monthly billing, despite the fact that the same free alternative music piracy remains available in any browser. And that's it, my point right there. I mean, if you are pirating songs, you're probably still pirating songs today rather than paying the monthly fee for Spotify. Continues on to say, arguably the biggest problem in the music industry has with Spotify today is whether its free tier remains fit for purpose, because consumers have become so accepting of the paid subscription paradigm. And make no mistake, subscription as a model is loved by the modern music business. It's taken the whole industry back to commercial peaks. Many thought Napster and LimeWire had snuffed out for good. And when it comes to the actual revenues, they've skyrocketed. Since 2011, when Spotify launched in the United States, the global recorded music industry has grown by 73%, from 15 billion in annual revenues to 25.9 billion in 2021. So this concern comparing Game Pass to Spotify, if you want to do the direct comparison based off of what we know, based off of these statistics from Music Business Worldwide and Tim Ingham, it's had an extremely positive effect on the industry. And you kind of can see that happening as well, in my opinion, to the video game industry. And we've heard numbers from Xbox. We've heard about how more people play games and more people spend money on games. I think one of the stats came from Satya Nadella, who said that people on Game Pass play 40% more games and spend 50% more money when they're subscribed compared to people who are unsubscribed to the service. And we hear about all the deals about Xbox Game Pass in terms of how much money, or estimated how much money they pay for certain games to get onto the service. How if you put your game onto the service, all of the actual risk you're taking by making a game, especially if you're an indie developer, gets taken away because you're already getting that lump sum of money, which will help offset all of the production costs that you have for making that game. And you're getting access to a bunch of new people that probably would have never checked out the game. We've also heard from certain indie developers that more people have actually bought their game since it's been on Xbox Game Pass. The amount of sales they've made has increased since they've entered the service because there's been more exposure for that game. More people have been able to try it out, and then they've liked that game. They also get that discount with Xbox Game Pass, and they go ahead and they purchase it for their collection. So I don't know, I can't see the future, but from what we can tell right now, Xbox Game Pass isn't having a negative impact on the industry. In fact, it's only having a positive impact for consumers, and it seemingly is having a positive impact for developers. PlayStation is also moving this way with the PlayStation Plus tier. So the whole industry is going this way, and we won't see the real huge effects of it, I guess, for another couple of years. When we've been able to collect the data, we're going to see what developers think about it, which developers like it, which developers don't, and if we're going to continue to get a variety of games and more games coming over to these services. I have a feeling that the positive impact is going to be better than the overall negative things that occur from the subscription services. So as we know, Summer Games Fest is just around the corner. The Xbox and Bethesda showcase is also just around the corner. It's an exciting time for video games. Unfortunately, there is no E3, but there are going to be all of these different separate shows that you're going to be able to tune into. And Jeff Keighley, who runs Summer Games Fest, chimed in on whether there will be a bunch of shows or more shows than usual for games this year. And he says here, there were a lot of shows last year where everyone was disappointed when they weren't really press conferences, right? Like Take-Two, Capcom, Square Enix, and things like that. I think they have learned that if you're going to do a press conference, you kind of need to have a 30-minute plus of stuff. And sometimes they only have one or two great games to show, which may not be enough to do a full event around. So I think that's going to be a bit of a shift. I have a pretty good sense of what's coming in the next month, and I think people will be hyped about games in general. There is still a lack of games coming out right now. This kind of is the COVID gap year, I think, with a lot of games being delayed because they were started during the pandemic. We're still hoping for a lot of things to come out. Here's on here to reveal what is going to be at that show in terms of guests. It says here 15 plus guests will appear during the show, and confirm that this year's event will see members of the media go hands-on with some of the games featured. Says, I don't think people are going to get necessarily everything that they want in June, like they never do, but I hope people have fun. It's just going to be different, and that's what I keep telling people. This is not replacing E3. It's a different sort of vibe and sense of things. I don't make the games, so I just sit here and pray that there's going to be some cool stuff to show people. So the main takeaway from all of this is that we're probably not going to be having like a Capcom, a Square Enix show, or any of these other big third-party publishers that have their own shows, because they just don't have enough stuff to show off and they don't want to have people leaving it disappointed. And I think that is a smart move. If you're going to show off some of your big games, maybe 1 or 2 of your big games coming out this summer, early next year or late next year, whenever, doing it during Summer Games Fest, which is a separate event where you can just give them that game and get people hyped for just that singular game, rather than having them sit there throughout a 30-minute show or an hour show, bored for the majority of it, just to get to one game that they're excited for. I think going this way with Summer Games Fest for them is the better choice. And who knows what big third-party stuff we're going to see at the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. I'm assuming we will see some great third-party stuff, and we still don't have any information if PlayStation's doing their own show, because if they do their own show, you can bet there's going to be a lot of third-party stuff, especially from Square Enix. So there's still going to be some great games to see throughout all of these shows. I'm excited for it. I will be streaming the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, so make sure to come out and check that out. And I may stream some of this other stuff as well if I have time, but it should be a fun time. And it's all going to be culminated at the end with that Xbox and Bethesda showcase. But that's it for me, guys. What are your thoughts on Xbox Game Pass and the negativity surrounding it right now? What are your thoughts on Ed Freeze comparing Xbox Game Pass and subscription and gaming to Spotify? Do you agree with him? Do you disagree with him? And what are you looking forward to the most from Summer Game Fest and just the overall showcases in the next couple of weeks? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Bye.